At exactly 4:58 a.m., Chicago turned into a battlefield. Armored vehicles rolled. Helicopters lifted. Doors blew in across 20 sites. Why did 1,600 federal agents treat a cartel like an insurgent unit? Because investigators found a paramilitary logistics hub hiding in plain sight, fortified warehouses, encrypted tablets still live, and rifles traced to overseas wars. Stay with me to see how Operation Steel Flood mapped a three-tier command: quartermaster, logistics, finance, and why overwhelming force was the only way to retake ground inside America's freight capital. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great! Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Military-style raid on an apartment building in the South Shore neighborhood. This is in the overnight hours, and they tell our sister station News Nation they arrested close to 30 people.
To be the largest immigration operation that we have seen thus far locally under Operation Midway Blitz.
The structure, which is a very large structure, you can see it's 5 stories. They went through that structure a lot quicker than I thought, and several apprehensions.
They called it a logistics city inside a city. The confidence came from doctrine. They built a three-tier command that looked like a field unit on paper and worked like one under stress. A quartermaster cell tracked rifles, ammo, and comms gear. Logistics crews sat inside real trucking firms, assigning trailers, swapping plates, and pairing routes with safe yards. A finance wing laundered loads through freight brokers, moved wire transfers, and kept reserve cash to restart after a hit. Their language kept pace with the structure. Long tools moved when rifles shifted. Cold engines flagged meth consignments on standby. Night packages meant time transfers through rail yards, sync to crew changes and scanner windows. Short, plain phrases. Long reach. Inside the warehouses, they hardened terrain. Interior choke points slowed entry. Pallets hid rifle caches under shrink wrap. Lookouts held radio discipline, brief calls, fixed check-ins, no chatter. Couriers ran counter-surveillance loops, changed cadence if tailed, and used decoy vans to soak attention before the real load rolled. Chicago's freight grid gave them the edge. Rail spurs, intermodal yards, and interstates worked like arteries. From one node, they could push weapons and narcotics into Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio while blending into lawful traffic. That's the advantage of a system designed for speed and volume, a river that hides a small boat. The weapons trail told the rest. Rifles with obliterated serials met ballistics that linked to overseas conflict zones, tying an international pipeline to a domestic fight. Supply in, violence out. The command surface said the quiet part. Boards laid out routes, risk colors, and contingency branches like ROE. Encrypted tablets sat open, channels live. That's a real-time ops center, not a stash room. This wasn't street gang chaos. No ad hoc calls from a corner. A layered chain sustained tempo and buffered the plaza boss who answered to commanders across the border.
Chicago to oversee today's operation, witnesses describing the tremendous show of force shortly after 1 o'clock this morning. The incident we talked to describing the federal operation captured on video by the Citizens app as overkill. Others in this densely populated South Shore neighborhood jolted out of bed by the sounds of military helicopters.
So investigators shifted aims. They weren't chasing dealers. They were charting an insurgent logistics node that bent America's freight capital to its will. The fix had to match the threat. If you want to understand the tactical mindset that wins these battles, subscribe now. If the enemy digs in like an army, you break them with overmatch. But at 4:58 a.m., one bad whisper and the whole grid could torch files and vanish. The stack was heavy. FBI, ICE, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Illinois State Police, and CPD formed a single playbook. 20 sites lit at once. Armored vehicles staged at choke points. Air assets warmed for lift and eyes on. The clock was the real fight. Encrypted channels and rotating couriers turned minutes into risk. A staggered raid would bleed intel and cue the rest to run. One leak, months gone. So the breach doctrine went simple and brutal: hit every door at once, fold their command loop, cut exits, and snatch live devices before a remote wipe. It's a hammer built to crack a shell designed to flex and deny. Armored trucks punched through fortified entries and blocked lanes. Helicopters held overwatch and moved teams fast between targets. Marshals hunted the high-risk takedowns. ATF secured and cataloged the weapons caches with chain-of-custody discipline. Legal fires rolled with the entry. Racketeering, conspiracy, international firearms trafficking, money laundering, charges layered to hold planners, movers, and bankers, not just hands on the load. Paperwork became pressure. Inside, the evidence spoke. Command rooms with route boards and contingency branches. Inventory logs detailed to pallets and rounds. Tablets still logged into channels, proof the tempo was live and the clock call was right. Then the sweep hit hard. About 800 arrests. Thousands of rounds seized. Cash pallets and organized records stacked for the prosecutors. A visible federal footprint stayed in place to slow any fast rebuild of cells. Overmatch wasn't excess. It was minimum force to freeze a network built to survive contact and deny blame. Steel on structure beats speed on rumor. But retaking ground is phase 1. Holding it takes long-haul work, intelligence-led policing, steady cases, and community pipelines that drain recruitment pools. Comment your choice below: sustained surge or phased drawdown? Treating an urban cartel node like an insurgent FOB isn't escalation. It's alignment. The threat exploited national logistics, so the response had to match doctrine, tempo, and scale. You saw why: command surfaces, live comms, and a weapons stream tied to foreign conflict zones demanded a military-grade playbook. Subscribe and join a community that seeks to understand the realities of modern conflict. Then tell me, what tool would you scale next: cyber forensics, armored mobility, or financial strikes? Comment your choice below. The next fight won't hide in alleys. It rides interstates, rail spurs, and warehouse docks, the supply lines you drive past every day. Watch where they bend.